My name is Eleanor Vance, and I spent 15 years of my life dedicated to Aegis Dynamics, a company that once represented the pinnacle of defense innovation. We built the systems that protected our soldiers, the technology that kept our nation safe. Or so I believed. My role as a senior project analyst in the Advanced Avionics Division placed me at the heart of some of our most critical contracts with the Department of Defense. I saw firsthand the meticulous planning, the rigorous testing, the unwavering commitment to quality that defined our work. It was more than a job. It was a calling, a belief in the integrity of what we did. Then Richard Sterling arrived. He was a whirlwind in a tailored suit, brought in as the new chief financial officer with a mandate to optimize efficiency and slash unnecessary overhead. His reputation preceded him, a corporate hatchet man, known for turning around flagging companies by any means necessary. From the moment he stepped into the executive suite, the air in Aegis Dynamics shifted. The hum of innovation was slowly replaced by the sharp, metallic clang of cost-benefit analyses. Every project, every component, every human being was reduced to a line item on a spreadsheet. At first, it was subtle. Small cuts to travel budgets, a reduction in catering for long meetings, the kind of minor annoyances that signal a new regime. But then the cuts began to bite deeper, gnawing at the very foundations of our operations. I started noticing anomalies in the procurement reports for the Guardian project, a next-generation targeting system for military aircraft. Critical components, previously sourced from trusted, high-grade suppliers, were being substituted with cheaper alternatives from obscure vendors. Testing protocols, once multi-layered and exhaustive, were being streamlined, sometimes skipping entire phases of environmental stress tests. My concerns began as whispers in the hallways, then grew into direct questions to my immediate supervisor, Mark Harrison. Mark was a good man, a veteran of the company, but he had a family and a mortgage, and the new corporate climate had instilled a palpable fear. "Eleanor," he'd say, his voice hushed, "I've raised these points. Richard's directives are clear. We're to meet these new cost targets, no exceptions. He says the original specifications were over-engineered." Over-engineered. The word itself was an insult to every engineer, every technician, every soldier who relied on our work. In the world of defense, over-engineered often meant reliable and life-saving. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The Guardian system wasn't just another piece of tech. It was designed to provide pinpoint accuracy in high-stress combat situations. A single failure could mean mission compromise, or worse, friendly fire incidents. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I began my own quiet investigation, poring over old project documentation, comparing original specifications with the new cost-reduced versions. The discrepancies were alarming. For instance, a crucial optical sensor, originally rated for extreme temperature fluctuations and vibrational stress, was replaced by a component with a significantly narrower operating range and lower durability. The cost saving? A mere 7% per unit. The potential risk? Catastrophic. My internal reports, detailing these concerns with meticulous data and comparative analyses, were met with a wall of silence, or worse, passive aggression. My emails to Sterling's office went unanswered. When I managed to corner his assistant, a perpetually flustered young man named Kevin, he merely stammered, "Mr. Sterling is very busy, Miss Vance. He trusts his division heads to manage their projects within budget." It was a clear brush-off, a signal that my concerns were unwelcome. I even tried escalating through the Internal Ethics Committee, a process that felt more like a formality than a genuine avenue for redress. My case was reviewed and then, predictably, dismissed with a boilerplate statement about proprietary business decisions and executive discretion. The pressure intensified. Rumors started circulating that I was difficult, not a team player, too focused on minutia. My once collaborative colleagues began to keep their distance, their eyes wary. I could feel the invisible net tightening around me. But the fear for my career was overshadowed by a far greater dread, the thought of a soldier in harm's way, relying on a system that Aegis Dynamics, under Sterling's command, had deliberately compromised. I realized then that internal channels were exhausted. To protect the integrity of our work, and more importantly, the lives of those who depended on it, I had to look outside. This was the corporate chess match Sterling had unknowingly initiated. He was playing with balance sheets. I was playing with lives. My next move had to be precise, undeniable, and utterly devastating to his scheme. I knew the risks. Whistleblowers rarely emerge unscathed. Their careers were often destroyed, their reputations tarnished. But I couldn't stand by. I thought of my uncle, a Marine veteran who had always told me stories of reliance on equipment, of the implicit trust placed in the hands of the manufacturers. I couldn't betray that trust. I began to meticulously compile my evidence. Late nights became the norm, fueled by cold coffee and a burning sense of injustice. I saved every email, every revised specification document, every internal memo from Sterling's office that hinted at the cost-cutting directives. I cross-referenced procurement orders with new supplier contracts, highlighting the significant drop in quality alongside the modest savings. I created detailed charts and graphs illustrating the alarming performance degradation of the substituted components based on publicly available data and industry standards. It was a dossier, painstakingly built brick by agonizing brick, designed to withstand any scrutiny. My home office transformed into a war room, cluttered with printouts and highlighted passages, a secret world hidden from the corporate eye. My only confidant was a former colleague, David Chen, who had left Aegis a year prior to work for a smaller defense contractor. David had always been a man of principle. I met him discreetly, in out-of-the-way coffee shops, speaking in guarded tones. He listened, his face growing grimmer with each detail. "Eleanor," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "this is huge. This isn't just bad business. This is criminal negligence. If these systems fail in the field, the fallout will be immense." He gave me a crucial piece of advice. You can't go to just anyone. You need someone high enough, someone who understands the stakes, and someone who can cut through the bureaucracy. He suggested I try to reach out to someone in the DoD's Office of the Inspector General, or even better, a direct contact within the Procurement Oversight Division, ideally someone with a military background. It was a long shot, but David's words solidified my resolve. I remembered a particular interaction from years ago during the initial phases of the Guardian project. General Marcus Thorne, then a brigadier general overseeing advanced weapon systems, had visited our facility. He was a man of quiet authority, with eyes that saw everything and a reputation for uncompromising integrity. He'd spent an hour in my lab, asking probing questions about the engineering, the testing, the redundancies. He cared deeply about the details, about the soldiers who would use the equipment. I knew it was a long shot, but if anyone would understand, it would be him. Finding a way to reach General Thorne was a labyrinthine task. I couldn't just call him up. I leveraged my network, discreetly reaching out to old contacts who might know someone, who might have an email address, a non-official channel. It took weeks, filled with dead ends and moments of despair. Finally, through a retired Air Force colonel I'd once consulted for, I got a name: Captain Sarah Jenkins, General Thorne's senior aide. More importantly, I got her personal email, one she used for non-classified, sensitive communications. Composing that email was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had to be succinct, compelling, and professional without revealing too much or sounding like a disgruntled employee. I outlined in broad strokes a serious compromise to the Guardian system, citing specific component categories and the potential for mission failure. I emphasized the urgency and the internal stonewalling. I attached a carefully redacted, anonymized summary of my findings, enough to pique interest without exposing my full hand. I hit send, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, and then I waited. The reply came 2 days later, A short, formal message from Captain Jenkins requesting a meeting. No specifics, no details, just a time and a nondescript location, a small government building several blocks from the Pentagon. It was happening. The corporate chess game was moving to a new, terrifying board. I dressed conservatively that morning, trying to project an air of calm I didn't feel. My carefully prepared dossier, now a thick binder of damning evidence, felt like a lead weight in my briefcase. Captain Jenkins was everything I expected. Sharp, professional, with an almost unnerving ability to listen without interruption. I laid out my case, starting with the original project goals, the meticulous engineering, and then the insidious creep of Sterling's cost-cutting measures. I showed her the side-by-side comparisons of component specifications, the procurement orders, the emails where my concerns were dismissed. I explained the technical implications in detail, the way a seemingly minor change in a capacitor's rating could lead to system instability under combat stress, or how a cheaper lens could degrade targeting accuracy by crucial millimeters. Her expression remained neutral throughout my presentation, but I saw a flicker of concern in her eyes when I showed her the projected failure rates based on the new components. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy. "Ms. Vance," she finally said, her voice calm, "this is incredibly serious. General Thorne takes the integrity of our defense systems very seriously. He will want to see this immediately." She didn't promise anything, but the gravity in her tone was enough. I left feeling a fragile sense of hope mixed with an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. The next few days were agonizing. Every phone call, every email, every shadow in the corporate hallway felt charged with impending doom. I kept my head down, continued my work as if nothing had happened, but inside, I was a coiled spring. Then, a week later, an email landed in my inbox, not from Captain Jenkins, but from the DoD's Office of the Inspector General, a formal notification of an impending audit of Aegis Dynamics' Guardian project. It was a broad, sweeping request for documentation, project files, and financial records. The net was cast. The news spread through Aegis Dynamics like wildfire. Panic erupted in the executive suites. Richard Sterling, who had always exuded an aura of untouchable confidence, suddenly looked haggard, his face pale beneath his usually impeccable tan. He called an emergency meeting of all division heads, his voice strained as he spoke of unforeseen bureaucratic hurdles and unwarranted scrutiny. He demanded absolute cooperation, but his eyes darted around the room, searching for the leak, the source of this sudden, inconvenient attention. I kept my gaze fixed on my notepad, my heart hammering, trying to appear as inconspicuous as possible. The audit team, led by a stern, no-nonsense investigator named Agent Miller, descended upon Aegis Dynamics with military precision. Offices were cordoned off, servers were analyzed, and key personnel were interviewed. The atmosphere became toxic, thick with suspicion and fear. Sterling tried to control the narrative, issuing directives to present a united front and emphasize our commitment to quality, but it was too late. The seeds of doubt had been sown, and my meticulously gathered evidence was about to bloom into a full-blown corporate scandal. My turn for an interview came on a Tuesday afternoon. Agent Miller, accompanied by Captain Jenkins, sat across from me. They didn't need me to recount the story. They had my dossier. Their questions were surgical, precise, aimed at corroborating every detail, every date, every specific component I had flagged. I answered truthfully, providing additional context, explaining the technical nuances, and pointing to specific files on our servers that would confirm my allegations. It was liberating, finally being able to speak the truth without fear of reprisal, at least in that room. The corporate chess game reached its brutal endgame swiftly. The DoD investigation unearthed a systematic pattern of cost-cutting across multiple critical projects, all initiated under Richard Sterling's tenure. The Guardian project was just the tip of the iceberg. They found evidence of falsified testing reports, manipulated procurement data, and a deliberate disregard for established safety protocols, all to meet arbitrary financial targets and boost Sterling's bottom line, which directly impacted his executive bonuses. The 7% cost saving on a single optical sensor suddenly seemed like a pittance compared to the multi-million-dollar penalties and contract cancellations Aegis Dynamics now faced. General Thorne himself made a public statement, his voice resonating with a quiet fury. He spoke of the unacceptable betrayal of trust and the reckless endangerment of our service members. He didn't name Sterling directly, but the implications were clear. The Pentagon moved swiftly to suspend all future contracts with Aegis Dynamics pending a full review, a death knell for a company that relied heavily on government work. The stock plummeted, wiping out billions in market value. Richard Sterling was summarily fired, his golden parachute ripped to shreds. The FBI launched a criminal investigation into his conduct, and rumors swirled that he was facing charges of fraud and endangerment. His corporate career, once soaring, crashed and burned in a spectacular inferno of his own making. Several other senior executives who had either been complicit or negligent in their oversight also tendered their resignations, fleeing the sinking ship. The corporate chess master had been outmaneuvered, his greed his ultimate undoing. As for me, the aftermath was complex. My role as the whistleblower eventually became known, albeit discreetly. Some colleagues viewed me with awe, others with resentment. The company, facing immense pressure, offered me a significant promotion and a leading role in the newly formed Integrity and Quality Assurance Division, a desperate attempt to rebuild trust. It was a tempting offer, a chance to truly steer the ship towards ethical waters. But the scars of the battle ran deep. I declined the promotion. While I was proud of what I had done, the corporate environment at Aegis Dynamics, even with Sterling gone, felt tainted. The trust was broken. Instead, I took a position with a smaller, highly ethical defense consultancy firm that specialized in quality oversight for government contracts. It was a fresh start, a chance to apply my expertise to prevent such blunders from ever happening again, working directly to ensure the safety and reliability of defense systems without the internal politics and corporate greed. I still receive occasional updates on the legal proceedings against Richard Sterling. Each one is a quiet affirmation that justice, though sometimes slow, can prevail. The experience taught me a profound lesson, that true power isn't always in the corner office or the bottom line. Sometimes it's in the quiet conviction of an individual, armed with nothing but the truth, willing to challenge an empire. The corporate chess game had been brutal, but I had played my part. And in doing so, I had not only exposed a blunder, but, I hoped, saved lives. And that, more than any promotion or bonus, was my ultimate victory.